else. Got Captain McDonald back once again. This is pretty awesome show here tonight. Another legend on the island. If you haven't heard him, you're going to hear the story tonight. Captain Byron Sewell. Thanks for being here tonight, man.
Thank you.
Awesome day.
Yeah.
Man, I know we're got a lot to cover tonight, but I got to start with the normal question we ask everybody. Are you originally from here?
Yeah, my family from the Dowdies, Collins, moved here in 61. Then my dad is his first cousin. My family moved here in 68. I was born in 73. There wasn't a hospital. We had a house on North Forest Beach on Heron Street, right next to Chris Werner, who used to do the Palmetto Bay Marina. And so I was born in Savannah at St. Joseph's because that's where everybody was born.
That's local. That's pretty local.
So then they bring me over, and then 3 days later, my dad put my feet in the Atlantic right there.
Yeah.
Got you started. Street. Yeah.
Man, and then if you know North Forest, there's a ton of history there too. So and we're gonna go through your fishing career. We're gonna go through your surfing career, where you're at right now. I mean, let's start with just living down at North Forest because I would live down there 20 years myself. It's a blast down there.
Well, I was just thinking about that today. It was all dirt roads. My dad and mom and everybody was working for Sea Pines Company, and that was in the 60s, late 60s. In the 73, I was born. I had a Cocker Spaniel. All the roads were dirt roads in North Forest Beach, so it was a dream. Shipyard Plantation, you could go through a little trail there and fish all the ponds there, and that's where we had our tree houses. The whole beach there was all sand dunes, and then they put the rocks in. Once they put the rocks in, it created a little environment. There was always water at the bottom of the rocks. I'll never forget. It was the greatest life ever. There was still forests all up and down the beach. There was jetties down at the shipyard. And basically the rocks, once they put the rocks in, it was like my fort, like we were climbing in the rocks. There was like ecosystems in the bottom of the rocks. There was sea anemones. There was always mud in there. There was, we found all kinds of stuff. I mean, there was turtles washing up. My Auntie Nancy was the first turtle lady.
Really?
On the island, so.
Are you just, once you get out there, I know you're living down there, I guess it's kind of a rite of passage down there. I've known kids also that grew up there, Roberts boys that grew up down there, surfers also. Did you just take to it right away? I mean,
my father was a champion surfer.
Oh, gotcha. I didn't know
out
that.
of Virginia Beach.
Really?
And a sailor.
Gotcha.
He was a Hobie Cat and Prindle national champ. He brought all the Prindles and Hobies here in the 80s, and back then there was 50 or 60 or 100 Hobies and Prindle Cats down the whole beach.
Holy cow.
And every company had a sail with their logo on it. There would be the McDonald's, there was the whatever, I mean, you name it, everybody. And so regattas were huge here. They had the national championships here.
I didn't know that. What year would that be? Way back in the day?
That'd be in the 80s, like early 80s. And all the lifeguards, Tad Seegers, Dick Ryan, all those guys. And my dad worked for the lifeguards, and he would fix all the sailboats. And actually, that's where I got my first taste of saltwater fishing. Is my dad would take us out on the Hobie Cats. I have to tell this story. This is a great one. And he would take a bicycle tire. And this is when the middle grounds, you've heard Fuzzy talk about it, but the Spanish mackerel, it was mind blowing. You could walk on the Spanish mackerel as far as you could see. The whole middle grounds was glass minnows, like as far as you could see. And you might remember, I don't know how long you've been here, but that kind of ended in the late 90s. I think like 2000. It's gone. It was like gone. I don't know what happened, but anyway, Dad would take a big tire and tie a big piece of 100-pound mono with a big spoon on it, and we'd go sailing on our Hobie Cat. And he'd catch Spanish, pop the sail.
Just throw it out there.
And so we'd come in, and I would hold on to the hull. And I'd get 5 years old, and the old lifeguards, they were all hippies and gnarly. They were all real men back then. Like, I mean, thank you lifeguards for what you do, but most of them are from Ohio now or whatever. Right. But these guys were pretty serious dudes. At least I thought they were. I was just a little kid. They were all tan, all partying a lot, and this was back in the hippie days. So I remember in full moon nights, Dad and all the guys would meet up and have a big bonfire on the beach, and they all had white sails, and everybody would get naked and go sailing. with white sails in the moonlight. And all you'd see is little butts and boobs with white sails. And you'd hear, "Ew." And I don't know what they were doing because that was the psychedelic days. That was the great.
You're still pretty young at that time.
Yeah, this was, when Hilton Head was wild, when Fuzzy was a wild Fuzzy and Collins was crazy. And all these guys were legends, Stratty. I mean, this is when they were our age, or the 20s and 30s. This is when Hilton Head was another animal.
That's awesome.
And everybody knew each other, and everybody took care of each other. And I could go into any house, and North Forest Beach was like that. So, I mean, my life here has been the ultimate dream. Like, and how it snowballed from whatever happened to wherever I am now, was because these guys in the community took care of me, like Fuzzy.
So we asked Kai this too. So you're fishing back in the day when I grew up. You're about the same age as I am, even though I look younger than you do.
I'm celebrating 50 years on Hilton Head.
You look good. I just had 51 years.
50 years.
Congratulations. You don't look past 31.
God.
So when I was growing up too, fishing wasn't a real big thing. I know you're in your heyday down here. Were there other buddies that you were hanging out that we know of still to this day that you were hanging out back then with by any chance? Or did you have your group of boys?
I can't really remember because I was 7 or 8 when Collins took me when I was a kid. We'd always go into Sea Pines and fish the ponds. He started fishing in there in 61.
Wow.
I think he's probably the oldest inshore fisherman around here and probably the most notable fisherman who's done more for fishing than anybody around here.
Wow.
As far as saving fish,
Who's this?
Collins Dowdy.
I've heard that name a bunch.
Oh, dude, he's done everything. He's been here for one of the longest as far as working with Al Stokes at the Mariculture Center. And he's a wild character, and his fishing his cast and blast write-ups are magical. And he's the one that turned me on to being how to fish and stay stoked and keep moving. I mean, he's got a morphine pump. He's barely. I don't know how he lives right now because he's fished so long, and he just keeps going. If you ever fish with him, he's a master wahoo guy and everything, but he just doesn't stop, and he keeps the stoke, and he's, fish dance, everything, keep it going, keep the mojo, change this, let's go, and I'm just like a kid going, oh my God, get me out of here. But yeah, he took me in Sea Pines. My dad, back then, everybody fished. There was D&J Bait and Tackle, Mid-Island.
Bud.
Then at the Crackle Barrel,
great.
Mid-Island where the par 3 is, the honey hole, which is you can't fish there, people. But across from there was a bait store there, and everybody used to stand on the bank there and fish. And it was like Sundays, that's where you went with your kids, and you'd stand in the grass there and catch giant trout. And then Shelter Cove area. So I mean, it was just standing in the back of your dad's truck. My dad was allowed to drive on the beach because he was fixing all the boats. So we had a big, sick truck, and I'd be riding in the back, like, woo!
That's awesome.
I'm getting kidnapped, we just living the dream with my friends. And,
did you know you were at the time? Like, I mean, you're in this awesome, sick life, and you're
hell no.
Did you know you're just a kid, and that's the way you just grew up?
Yeah, like I say, Hilton Head's a bubble.
Yeah.
Kids that grow up here.
They don't know.
And that's what changed my life, was traveling around the world and really seeing. And people that think that the fishing here is, that it's not going to go anywhere if you don't take care of it.
Right.
It will disappear.
Right.
We're gonna. I've seen it all over the world, and I've seen all that stuff. So I mean, that's why I moved back here. When I was gonna leave forever because I would just fell in love with that whole blue water and the big waves and all that stuff. But my parents, I'm an only child, and I grew up, we'll keep it to North Forest Beach. But when I was 7, they started my mom started a Montessori school in our house for just a couple kids, and Todd Ballantyne.
Oh my gosh,
famous,
yeah.
right? He was there, and his hippie wife playing the electric violin. And it was the most amazing thing. So Todd, I was raised with Todd.
Todd's an amazing man.
And there's a quote in the first island events that Fuzzy was talking about. They said, Byron, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I says, I just want to be in a ditch with Todd, because Todd would take us to a ditch of water, and we'd sit there for 2 hours, and he'd make the whole thing come alive. Like, talk about the tadpoles. Somehow it would just be this magical wonderland. And so my whole life was growing up in that area, like this is a magical wonderland. I mean, it never ended and took so long to. I wouldn't go over towards Broad Creek. I was on my bike working with the shipyard with the alligators and catching my first big bass, and then going with Collins to Sea Pines, and then that evolved into competitive surfing with my dad, and then he had a van, and we'd travel up and down the East Coast.
You were on a board probably pretty early in life.
3 years old, yeah.
So when do you start competing?
I started competing when I was 12.
Wow.
And then Dad would take me. Dad had a Hatteras, a trailer in Cape Hatteras, called the Sunshine Surf Shack.
Sick.
And he painted it. He's Santana all the way up, and cruising, and a world-class fly fisherman, and that started. So anyway, I grew up in my dad's van, and he'd have fishing rods lined up in our golden retriever. Sometimes he'd have the catamaran on the back, and we'd go on these amazing adventures, and he'd back the van up to these beaches and open the doors, and I'd be sleeping, I'd wake up, and then we'd be at some new beach, and it'd be like, I'm going surfing, I'll be back, don't go too close, don't do that. Then once I got older, here's the spoon, catch us, if you see the fish going off, catch some Spanish or bluefish in the surf or whatever, wherever we were, whether in Florida or North Carolina. And it was just the dream. Like I said, it was a dream growing up with Nancy and Jerry, Wet Horse, local legends, Turtle Lady and world champion surfer, and then Collins taking me offshore for the first time, and my first offshore trip was with Eddie Carter, Bubba's dad.
Yeah.
And Jeff's dad. So on the Gulf Streamer.
Wow.
So when I was 7 or 8, I caught my first king in Wahoo with them.
What did you think of that world all of a sudden?
Well, I got seasick as hell. I used to get really seasick, and Collins was very hard on me.
Was he?
Oh, he's a dirty dog. Collins is the most notorious comedian. So, the first time I ever went offshore, he was up at the top, and I'm like barely holding on. Diesel in my face. I'm just like, this
big
sucks.
roll.
How long are we going to be out here? And he's like, hey, bye! I'll never forget it. And I look up, and he has his pants down, and he's squatting over. I'm like, and then he comes down with a cigar, and he blows it in my face, and here's a cup of rum, and, I'm just like, just putting me through the grammatizing. So.
It's like hazing back in the day. The rite of passage, basically.
That's how surfers are, too.
Absolutely.
Surfers are, you're going to get. There's a lot of things that are going to happen to you.
You gotta
so
get
all the
through it.
kids that grew up on North Forest Beach, like Nick Bentz, Johnny Jameson,
Yeah.
Boogie, all those guys, we all grew up together. They were a little younger, so I tortured those guys. I made Nick cry a million times, and he's a gnarly fisherman.
Yeah.
Him and Johnny are world-class fishermen.
They're rite of passage.
You don't know, people don't know about those guys because they don't do Instagram or anything like that, and they don't have charters, but they're fishy dudes. There's fishy dudes everywhere, like that. But
so when do you get into surfing competitively? When do you know you're a good surfer?
well, you think you're a good surfer,
Right.
and then you realize you're not a great surfer. When I was super hardcore, little kind of like ego teen, blonde, necklace, good-looking little grom at high school. So I got a lot of girls and smart ass and just terrible, just a devil kid.
But awesome.
And we were terrible. Jevin Gavin.
Everybody wanted to be.
Dailies and
Spicoli.
that.
Just say it.
The Daily Planet, right? Jevin
Yeah.
and Gavin. We were all best friends, so we were all surfing. We were gnarly. We'd get all the tourist girls. We were terrible. We were partying and having fun, and it was a dream. And I wasn't really into fishing at that time, in teen time. I was just surfing hard. And that was my thing, and trying to win, U.S. championships. And then...
How long did you go for? To what age?
19.
So you're looking at it as a career,
No,
too, right?
18. I thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought it was. But then I realized I went to U.S. championships, and I was like, it's like what I tell people about being a charter fisherman to young guys. I'm like, competing and doing it as a job can be different than doing it for fun and having it free and not stressing yourself out, or it really takes a special mind frame to keep it blessed and fun.
Yeah.
And share it.
Yeah.
There's a million grumpy old captains that turn into alcoholics, and they're just a mess.
Yeah.
And that's what Fuzzy taught me not to be. And then I was around those guys. I was like, these guys are not fun. It's gnarly, you know, and I don't care what they call
You mean
it.
the surfer guys were? You mean
No,
basically?
the hardcore fishing.
The
guys.
hard. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Back in the
surfers.
day.
You can't be an alcoholic or a drug addict if you're a surfer.
Right.
because
You're too much.
Yeah,
You're an
it's too
athlete.
athletic.
You'll
you can't
die.
get up and feel
You'll
like
die.
crap.
Yeah.
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 When I used to go work at some of the arenas around here, I could smell the alcohol in some of the guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The old school guys that walked out of the boats, you know. Not saying that all of them were like that, but some were, and that's just common. You know, that's just the way it is because it's not an easy life.
No.
I feel
No.
like you do a
Like
really
you
good
said.
job keeping everyone pumped. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like your whole business is based off of like just having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's how you have to be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
to keep your dream,
Yeah.
you know, because if you're always looking at what's not working right, it can be pretty heavy in life, you know, like that's how this life is wild.
But one thing about you is, and by what you do and stuff like that, and at least it comes off to everybody, and I know this, you love this place. Just the way you're talking right now, you came back. So I'm trying to do a little chronology here,
Yeah.
even if that's a word or not sure.
Works
I
enough.
will let you know though, is it the East Coast Surf, is that the league or whatever? East Coast.
Yeah, it was the Eastern Surfing Association.
So 35 and above, out of 838, I was ranked 838. Only because JT Roberts over in Savannah gave me a 3.5, and I actually had an actual score.
Sick.
So at least I was ranked on the East Coast at
Yeah.
one time. It was a little down, but that's a
Yeah.
side note to it. So you're surfing.
So I was competing, and then I was at the U.S. Championships, and I had just went to Costa Rica for the first time, and I didn't really get Costa Rica yet. I was like, wow, this is sick, but I still was like, girls, McDonald, I was really lost, and I was lost. All I wanted to do is when I punch my surfboard up, I would lose. And then one day at the semifinals, the waves were so terrible, and all these legends were on the beach, and I was like, I yelled this cuss word out, and I was like, ah. And I looked up at the beach, and my dad and all the legends and everybody that I cared about looked at me, and we were like, ah. And I looked at myself, and I was just like, what am I doing? I lost it. I lost the stoke. I lost what surfing's all about, which is, like my dad always said, just have fun. Just have fun. Life is short. And so I said, oh, I'm not going to do that. And I moved to Costa Rica. I started living in Costa Rica 6 months a year.
You just love it down there.
Well, I was there in the early days, and I actually lived on the beach in a tent.
Before all the commercialization
Yeah, for
and
months
people,
at a
everybody
time.
knew it. Basically.
Yeah, that's where. And
You were a legend down there. We would hear stories about you being down there.
Well, we
being
would-
a pioneer. Basically.
It was a pioneer thing, and it
Yeah,
was cool
that's
because
crazy.
I would just work summers here, and back then you could live for $2,000 for like 6 months, and so for me I would save like 1,000, and go for 6 months and live on the beach.
And the rainy season was
insane.
different from here, right? Did they
Yeah.
have a rainy season down there?
Yeah,
No.
it's opposite.
It's opposite, so it's perfect, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so and I would work and run my mom's summer and beach camp here on Hilton Head at Kindred Spirits. Almost every kid, a lot of parents, people you know have been there, were there. And so I started falling in love with that. I was like, oh my God. And my dad went down there with me and we were fishing. And that's when fishing stuff started happening. This is when I was 18, 19. I just turned 19. I graduated. I went to school here for a year. And I said, I don't know what I want to do. I need to find myself. I want to fall in love with the ocean. I started really getting into my fly fishing. And actually,
What down there got you hooked too? Like,
well, just
I mean, what was it?
it was
Stuff off the beach, right?
yeah, it was loaded. I mean, yeah, it was loaded with snook and rooster fish and
Rooster fish,
and
yeah.
you know, cerro mackerel. And I was spearing fish and I was diving and I was finding out what I was made of. Big waves, living on the beach, eating what we caught, this and that.
That's the dream.
Yeah, so I was 18 and I started fly fishing, and Trent and my dad were fishing a lot. And this is when Fuzzy and Raz and Marty and Pinkston and Fuzzy were, as far as I know, the only two real inshore fly fishing guides. There was maybe one other guy out of Shelter Cove, I can't remember his name, he was on the forecast. And then I was
Ken Bird.
way before Ken.
Oh, before Ken Bird.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I got my first flat skiff from Weston Fowler. It was the Hughes Redfisher with the time
Oh
haul.
gosh.
Actually, my first flat skiff was a Bass Tracker flip pallet model.
There you go, baby.
And I realized real quick that wasn't going to work, you know, especially crossing. Then
It did have Flip's name on it though.
Yep, and I got, my grandma died and left me a few paintings that weren't, you know, we're poor, we don't have any money in our family. We have a lot of spirit, but we don't have any money. And so I found out I got these paintings, and they were worth like $7,000, $8,000. I didn't have any money. I was like, my family's all, keep it, don't spend it, put it towards your future, da da da. And I was like, I'm going to live the dream. I'm getting sponsored. I'm getting serious into fishing and surfing, and this is what we're gonna do. And so, this is a funny story. We're gonna be brutally honest here. So, I hated fly fishing. I couldn't do it. I was just, before you get fly fishing,
Yeah.
you
Makes no
don't get it
sense.
until you get that double haul and it's gone. Then your life changes.
You see people never get it. Too.
Yeah,
That's
so
even frustrating.
this is classic. So my dad got the very first flat skiff, like actually big flat skiff on Hilton Head. It was a 21-foot key hopper.
Oh, no.
Sick. It was a badass boat. Kind of badass back then. It looked really cool.
He's chartering, or is he just?
He wanted to charter. He could never pass the test. My dad's just ADHD.
Gotcha.
He's an amazing waterman, an amazing guy, but couldn't do it. Or I guess that's what happened. And anyway, classic story. I was 18 and we were partying. Classic summertime here, and I'm walking home, and it was kind of psychedelic times back then. I'm walking down the road at 5 in the morning. My dad and Trent are standing up at the boat, and they're like,
About to go fishing.
"Where are you? Where have you been, dude? Get in the boat." I'm like, "Whoa, what? No way. Oh, what are you talking about, man? I'm not getting in the boat, man. I can't get in the boat right now." He's like, "You're getting in the boat."
Oh, no.
And I had been trying to fly fish for years. I couldn't get it. I started in shipyard, and that day, I was like, he's like, "Watch your back cast and wait for it to stop." I was like, "Oh my God."
You got it.
And I finally got it. And I fell in love with it. I caught my first red on the fly that day.
Oh, man.
That's
And
awesome.
it was a game changer. And then that year I started taking fly gear down to Costa, and got my first skiff and started Native Sun. So we're kind of there, moved through growing up a little bit, competitive surfing, fishing, falling in love.
One question, not to cut you off, which I am. Are you a detail-oriented fisherman? Because fly fishing, you're talking about some big names. Your father. I mean, there's a lot of intricacies to fly fishing. Are you picking all that up, or you said you just loved it?
Yeah, no,
you just got it, and then all of a sudden, are you
I
all
was,
into it, or
it took
what?
a long time.
I got it.
When I graduated high school, Dad said, "Come on, we're taking you somewhere." And his parents just died, and he came into a little money, got the boat, and he's like, he took me straight from the graduation thing to the airport, and we flew to Belize to the.
Oh,
and I had my
gosh.
first
awesome.
experience catching tarpon.
Oh gosh.
And I was like, "Whoa, this is freaking cool. This is freaking. I've never done any of it. I didn't even know what this was. I had
And that was
no
on the
idea."
fly?
Yeah, well, I caught a few fish on the fly, some baby cobia and
Yeah.
some little stuff, but I wasn't. No, I caught tarpon on we were throwing mirror lures in these big channels, real slow, and I hooked big spinning rods.
That's awesome.
But it was a dream. It was like, whoa, this is crazy. So came back from that, and I was like, okay. Still didn't think I was gonna do it as a living. I just didn't put it together yet because it really wasn't happening. Hampy was getting into it. Fuzzy, and it just wasn't in my ballpark. And then I guess it kind of happened when, like I said, Trent and I were. That's when me and him were fishing really hard together all the time. Whenever he wasn't working, and he was always a great king mackerel fisherman, inshore fisherman. His father was a legend fisherman.
That's what I've heard. That's where he learned it from.
Yeah, so
being in a boat all
between
the time.
Collins taking me
Yeah.
and his dad and me and him mixing together, it was a good combo because we're kind of opposites. He's real quiet. He can fish a spot for 2 hours, like sit there. They're gonna eat, and I'll be like, dude,
We gotta
I'm gonna
go.
freaking die.
Yeah, 10
So,
minutes. let's
which was
roll.
good because we mix it up, and,
Yeah.
and I'd bring. So,
How'd you meet Trent?
he was a surfer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was a bad little dude, man. He had a Camaro with a red Camaro, and he'd pick me up from school. Be like, "Come on, get in. We're going to Jacksonville surf, and you're not going to school today."
Oh God.
Oh God, okay. And then he was my big, him and Wee Win and Reggie De La Cruz. All those guys were all my big brothers. We had a big surf family here on the island. Believe it or not, there used to be waves here. The banks were smaller. We had northeasters all the time. You used to be able to surf Folly Field all the time. Right? There was waves there. I head high waves.
Was it because of the rocks and the jetties, or just
No,
the
it's just
beach
because
with
the
renourishing
weather
and
patterns
stuff
have
too?
changed.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the weather patterns have changed. It's not a joke. We used to have northeasters all the time. You never have a south wind in the winter, ever. And now we're getting them all the time.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
tomorrow.
70
It's
degrees.
unbelievable. It's
Yeah.
happened all the time. So I mean, it's a fact. And then the banks grow up, and then block the waves. And so that's what's happened. So where am I from?
You get your
that?
redfisher. You get your.
Yeah, so Weston Fowler, and I was really impressed with. I was like, man, nobody's, so nobody was like, I was kind of really the only young guy into fly fishing back then, and I think, and I realized that none of these old guys would take me fishing, or answer any of my questions unless I called them and bugged them. So I was like, God, Collins is always, and I bugged him all the time. Take me. And then Greg Clark would surf with me all the time, and he was part of our family, and he saw where I was headed, and he would call me and he'd say, he knew that I would only work at night or work at the school. Certain times he needed someone to catch all the fish when he'd go out and try to catch fish to sell. And I was just the real guy. And I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to tie a hair wire twist or any of that. I'd never caught a king mackerel really. Like, I'd never rigged anything. I could go along with somebody, get a free.
So genius.
I never.
When
knew
you
how,
said that today about being the rod guy, like,
That's perfect.
I was like,
Yeah.
man, that's pretty awesome. But it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're doing this.
Oh,
you're doing all the work.
he
Not,
was
not all the
classic.
work. It's fun
Crank
work.
it in.
Yeah, there, take it.
Greg was awesome, and I was listening to you the other day, and you finally realize that there is something to how to find fish,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get that for a long time. I just was riding along with people,
Oh yeah.
getting put on fish, going. It's like guys that go to lodges all the time and never go out and find their own,
Right.
do a real adventure,
Right.
like I did in Costa. It's easy to go to a lodge, but and Greg was not explaining these things to me. He was just saying, "Go ahead, reel up."
Yeah, get 'em.
It wasn't part of his thing. Next thing, I'm like, "How are you catching all these fish? They're tarpon and kings, and
This is so easy.
this is amazing. I'm going to be great at this." And this is funny. This is true because so I was like, "Yeah, I'll be a charter fisherman.
This is easy peasy.
I got this. I'm
All
gonna
you
be
gotta
a
do is
charter
reel
fisherman."
them in.
Yeah, when you're
Fish
a
jumping in the boat.
you think you're the man. You're like, wow, I caught a few fish. I'm going to be a charter fisherman.
No.
Ain't that easy.
Really. And now I tell the kids just really think about it. Just really think about it. Because, anyway, it's not that easy, and it's getting harder every year. Especially if you want to make a living out of it. Just do
Really?
fishing. You know what I'm saying? It's really a dream. It's like chasing the dragon.
It's a lifestyle. I heard this back in '98 from Mike Overton, quote unquote. It's a lifestyle decision. I remember hearing that, like, man, how's that going to pay my bills? But here I am.
We were just talking about that when we went fishing.
Full circle back, and here we all are. And it's a gene that you get ready for the season.
Yeah.
Try to keep yourself busy in the winter time.
Yeah, so
No waves
So
anymore.
this is classic. So right about then, I started. Trent was killing himself doing Korean, and we were fishing in Palmetto Dunes all the time because we were blown away by the time bluefish.
Wait, you gotta go back. How do you get in there? Because how do you even know? I know you're fishing ponds because you're
Trent
local.
used to fish. His dad would drop him off in there with a bucket of bait when he was about 7 or 8 years old, or even who knows, and then go work at a house and build countertops all day, and then come back and pick him up. Trent would have a whole bucket full of fish. He'd say, "You stay right here. You fish in that corner right there," and then Trent would fish all day. And then I wasn't really fishing in Palmetto Dunes. I was doing freshwater stuff. But anyway, later on, when we got older and we were fly fishing and saltwater fishing, and he's like, "Dude, we got to go in Palmetto Dunes. You're gonna." And then I heard my uncle talking about it, how there's the big world record trout in there, and 15-pound trout, 20-pound bluefish, 50-pound redfish, and all these. We were like, "Wow." So we had this girl that we knew, and she had a canoe, and we put a trolling motor on it. We got it all rigged up, and we'd go in there every day after work. He'd come and meet me. I'd have everything ready, and we'd go in there and slow troll around and try to figure out how to fish in there. And we didn't even put two and two together. We should cast and catch bait in there. Like I said, we'd go to Crackle Barrel Pond or any pond. We'd have a live well in the back of his truck. We'd catch a bunch of mullet. We'd put them in there. We'd race in there, take the mullet out, put it in into the canoe. I mean, we're talking about Palmetto Dunes where there's year-round bait.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's
It's loaded.
stacked up.
They never get
And
out.
so we troll mullet like this with kingfish rigs, with full wire kingfish rigs, and catch. Like I caught the state record bluefish in there, 21 pounds.
Holy cow!
Yeah, it was
That's
crazy.
huge.
So it was a dream, and like
That's nuts.
But that's hard to. That's a system even to this day.
it's
You don't just.
world-class.
It's world class, but you don't just walk in there and start
Oh
catching
no,
stuff.
it's way harder
You
now.
gotta know how to
It
catch
goes
some
through
of that.
phases.
Yeah.
We just lost a lot of fish.
You lost the tarpon on the cold slab.
Yeah,
so that
I mean,
sucks.
it's not easy. People laugh when like we posted that fly fishing video. It's really hard to catch a fish on a fly in there.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, it blow your mind how hard it is. Like
Put some time in it.
it's mind blowing. It's like the hardest thing ever. Live baiting, throwing big baits in there and watching, that's different. But there's lots of times all the reds are there, they won't eat. Anyway, we're sitting in there and I'm like, God, dude, can you imagine if we could like take people fishing here for money? And he's like, oh, don't even talk about it, Corey, and come out of his nose, This is when he smoked and he had Mountain Dew and everything. And just a classic Southern boy, he'd work his brains out. I mean, he would do 15, 18-hour days, no problem, every day. And he was killing himself. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make a proposal to see Palmetto Dunes. And I got it. And so we built a boat together.
Were you surprised? You seemed to be.
I was
Like, oh my
totally
God, I got it.
surprised. And I was,
You're like, no way.
so I was doing that. I started that. And then I'd sit on a little table there, a little picnic table with a little sign. Before it was the Outfitters, $145 for half-day fishing, 4 hours.
Unbelievable.
And I think like the most trips I ever ran was like 100 trips, or like not even probably maybe like 50 or something. But I didn't care. I didn't need.
Did you have it dialed in? Like when you were taking people out, did you just
we
start
did.
learning it more and more and dial it in out
there
there?
was a lot of days. I mean, I wasn't busy. So
Right.
It was like a trip a week or two, and then I'd go work at the restaurant, and then I'd go save up everything and go to Costa Rica for 15 years. And we found these secret areas down there. And then I got my flat skiff, and I talked Trent into getting his license. I was like, Trent, I want you to join with me with Native Son, and we'll do this together. I don't care. I'll give you half my charters. I want you to quit doing corying because you're my best friend, and I care about you, and you're going to kill yourself. And he's like, let's do it. And he got his license, and this old guy, Steve, gave him a Mako, and I had the stick, and we bounced back and forth, and we had these cool flyers that had the lagoon and what he has now. So I did it for a while, and then I got my skiff, and I really got into the fly fishing, and I remember watching Marty Pinkston, the legend flyboy, and Fuzzy, I didn't see him much because I was always on the north end, but Marty was out.
Yeah, where were you
I
guys?
think Fuzzy was running his bait and tackle more.
Where's your
doing
boat first
something.
time? Where do
I
you?
was out of the boat landing.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh geez, then.
Yep. And wait, where was I? Yeah, the boat landing. I can't even remember.
But you're trailering it basically the spots.
Yep, I was
basically.
trailing it.
Gotcha.
Yep. I had a little blue Bronco, old Bronco with serious fishing, serious fun on the back.
That's awesome.
Hasn't changed.
Yep.
Hasn't
And I
changed a
love
bit.
pulling, and I pull fat guys around and big dudes around all day against the wind, and the fishing was unbelievable. I mean, we used to have big fish here, 40 inches, 38
Just
inches on the
chilling.
flats, everywhere. May River, everywhere is covered, and everybody gets mad at me. They're like, Byron, you can't tell us it was like that all the time. And, I've been doing a little inshore fishing lately. I'm very impressed, but a lot of the, it seems like it's changed a lot. All the, like across from Windmill Harbor, Fuzzy used to fish Mariner's Cove Point and all that island there, across the way, both sides of May River. Everywhere was loaded with giant redfish. And then DNR came and did something, and everything disappeared.
What year?
All the big fish. This is probably 2000.
2000. Okay.
Everything disappeared. I mean, it was world class, dude. I'm telling you, there was giant redfish everywhere. That point at Mariner's Cove.
Yep, I know it.
It was, the whole thing was
bar
redfish.
right there, yep.
And then across, and then Dawes, I lived at Dawes, so I did all that. And I never fished for anything but redfish and trout. We'd catch 100 trout in Mackey Creek all the time. And so then I started thinking I was the man, and I wasn't. And I was like, yeah, I'll put cobia on there, sure, because I heard about Marty catching cobia, and then I started catching cobia with bait.
Mm-hmm.
and I was trying to figure out how they're catching this cobia on the fly rod. Like he was the only one doing it. Like he was, and nobody was letting off any secrets back then. Marty would come in with big coolers full of Spanish mackerel, not big, but he'd catch a Spanish mackerel on the fly, and I was like, oh, this is cool, man. There's a whole bunch of stuff I just don't know. Like I've never taken my skiff out front ever, like never.
Now you wouldn't even
Because
think about it.
it takes years to learn the flats. You know, I mean, it does. It takes years to learn the flats. So I had my hands full with that, and I was happy with it. And then one day I'm fishing over there at the rip at PR, and I'm like telling this guy, we're gonna catch a cobia on a fly rod. We're gonna chum them up to the back of the boat. It happens all the time. It never really happens, you know, like 1 in a million. You know,
I've thought about that 100 times. Like you just flip a fly.
yeah,
when
you
you're
know,
sitting there looking at you like.
it happens when you don't need it to happen.
Yeah.
And then I see somebody, whatever's happening for the cobia happen, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then me and Trent got in, so we had the redfish, we had all that, then we got into the cobia. Really got into sight fishing cobia on the fly. And here's a classic story. My dad gave me my first fly rod from my first custom Thomas & Thomas. Got right here at Travers' place. And we'd always fish. My birthday's the 19th, his is the 10th in May, so prime time.
Prime time.
And I would fish on his birthday. He'd guide me, and I'd guide him on my birthday. So every year forever, when the cobia fishing was ballistic here, you know, you could catch 15 or 20 in 4 hours during that time. Crazy, and they were all big. Like, you know, you never catch one under 20 pounds.
Yeah.
And we didn't know, you know, a lot of times we didn't know better, you know, it was terrible. But anyway, we caught a giant cobia together on his birthday, a 59 pounder on a 12-pound tip bit, and we're claiming it. Oh, Frank Gaston's boat, I was running his boat. Ooh, called my dad, meet us at the marina, bring the camera, for God's sakes. There was no social media.
Right.
But we were claiming it's a state, we thought it was a world record. You know, we were like this, and
Because it looks so big.
yeah, so he puts my rod up on the gunnel, right? And we get the picture, boom, boom, and we come back, and my dad comes down and he's like, "Hey, bye. Okay, Trent, go get the rod, and you know we'll get a picture of you guys in the
Rod's
fish."
in the river.
And Trent, the rod's gone. My dad walks up with I'll never forget it. He walks up with the camera. He's like, "What?" And he just walks away. He just walked away.
Everything.
And I was like, we had to go to Hudson's to get the shot, you know.
Right.
And yeah, so that was cool. That was just amazing times, you know. It was so good back then, and you know, we learned our lesson from the cobia, you know, and it reminds me when I went to New Zealand and they had the same problem with the snapper. They fished for snapper like we do the bull reds off the creek.
Yeah.
The big ones, you know, like, but they fish with jigs, and they lost them all.
From what?
From
Overfishing?
yeah,
They kept on
keeping the
messing
big
up?
females.
I got you.
And
Yeah.
then they shut it down for 5 years, not allowed to catch anything, forget it, and it came back like perfectly. So 5 years with no pressure, and they come back. So I mean, maybe this thing here is a little different, but you know, but Trent is. He's one of my fishing mentors, no questions. He's the meticulous guy. I'm the kind of go with my
You're
gut
like me,
guy.
yeah, just go with it.
Yeah,
Just figure it out.
I have a really good gut feeling.
I
Like
can't
I can
sit
be
there
like,
2 hours.
I can just follow my thing and find a fish, and he'll just pick things apart. You know, so that's why we had a great thing. And yeah, so the skiff happened, then I was really teaching fly fishing, getting into it, making a little scene there for that time. There was not social media, nothing. We had flyers, that's it. And we called Bug and Fuzzy. And Bug and Fuzzy, and he finally, they gave me the call and said, "You want to come down and manage Deepwater K Club, manage the guides and the tackle shop."
This is Raz Reed's and Fuzzy's place, or
No, this is
Just,
Ford Plantation's
oh.
company. It was Dolan, Polk, and Shram. It's the oldest bonefish lodge in the world.
wow.
And it was, I mean, when you got that call,
You're like,
Yeah.
I was
come
like,
baby.
really?
Yes.
Okay,
Just
I'm
say
done.
yes.
I'm done. And so I went down there and got into bone fishing. Got to work with the best bonefish guides in the world, Miko and the Penders and all those guys. and became very good friends with him. I actually got fired because I became too good friends. I was like, what are you guys doing? They're paying you nothing down here, and you guys are like getting nothing. You could be making fun. He goes, so he's like, Byron, you gotta chill out. You can't do all that. And I got a few other things. I was kind of a wildcat down there. I was living on a little tiny island, and I had my own house. They give you your own house. So I had some issues down there.
Do you have some buddies from here come there? I do know one that I think.
Well,
Did Tucker come?
they offered Michael Perry that job, I believe, years ago, and Bryon Karn came
Oh.
down. They were going to offer Bryon Karn. Bryon was working on the Hero. He hadn't gotten into fly fishing yet, really. And then that kind of happened for a while. Took some amazing people down there. I guided a little. I would guide when one guy was sick. I'd go along with them. And I started figuring out bonefish and mutton snappers and all that cool stuff. And then they got the dream property in Turks and Caicos, which is that private island that was 70
Yeah.
miles away from anything. It was just, I had my own flats. We had no budget. So I got the call for that, and that was the real turn on to the dream coming to reality. Like, wow, I can do this.
Right?
I got the spirit. Something's working. Because if Fuzzy's calling you in, you're on.
You're on, yeah.
So I was down there for 4 to 5 years straight, and I did not know how to fish those kind of waters. So.
And those guys, are they teaching you?
I was the only guy.
Oh, you're the only guy?
Yeah.
That's it?
Dude,
Oh, God.
I had 2 brand new Mavericks and a brand new 38 tournament edition cat.
Oh.
I had no budget. Fuzzy's like, let's order whatever you want.
Oh.
So I'm like,
This is a dream.
This is
but
a
I
dream.
didn't really know what to do because there were so many things. There was the flats, there was the shallow coral heads, there was the ledge, there was the points, there was offshore ends. But we had a pilot, and he would fly around. He'd be like, "Get in the boat." We could I could get the airplane pilot and go look for things and go look for whales for one of my clients came. Because my job was to sell the place. So whenever they came, I would have to know where everything was. And so Fuzzy flew me down there the first time, and I was like, "Oh my God!" We flew across the banks, the Caicos banks, and it's like a dream. It was like, oh my God, they're paying me huge. They're paying me like $7,000. No bills.
How old are you?
You're just
How old are you at
ready
the
for
time?
it.
This is 2004.
So you're late 20s?
2004.
Oh, no, you're little, yeah.
No, I was like 29, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And
I was
anyway,
using my math because I got the same math.
so Jose was the man. Jose Wehebe is like my idol, and Rush Maltz was a young man and was like a young fisherman that loved Jose. He learned everything from Jose. And then Sandy Moret, Bob Rich, all these famous. So they would fly guys in to teach me, like techniques, how to use a butterfly jig, not a butterfly, slipper jig, how to chum up yellowtail, what to look for, which part of the reefs do you want to fish, what part of. And I'll never forget, we did the whole show about that of like, hey, Jose, it's still 6 shows. We did 3 shows with Jose. And it was like, I put a map down, we were in safari tents. and we're
This
like,
is a legend. If anybody doesn't know,
Oh, he's the
please
greatest.
look him up.
he's
'cause
the Stoke master.
Yeah, there's Flip Pal, and then right below is probably
Yeah, you got
Jose.
Flip, who's kind
There's
of
a lot
like,
of great guys. but,
Flip's kind of like a librarian.
Jose
And
gets
then
it done,
Jose's
yeah.
like short surf.
Dive in, yeah.
No
he was
shirt.
hardcore.
Diving in with tarpon.
Fish would just come to him, basically.
Yeah,
Awesome
he was,
fish.
and he played guitar.
Yeah,
and he was super stoked. He's just the master of what.
God rest his soul, too. 'cause
Oh, fuck.
that's the way I cried.
Man.
I haven't cried,
Yeah,
in that, but man, that was a tough loss that day. To be honest with you,
he was the man.
he was a man.
Yeah.
So that's how we grew up on those shows.
Here's a classic though. Fuzzy threw me right into the mix, right? So my first day, like I'm there one day, they're like, okay, Byron. Fuzzy's like, he'll figure it out. Bonefish are here. They took me around. So the first day I'm out with my boss at that time, he's just gonna drive me around and show me where the snorkeling spots are, right? And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I'm like, whoa, this is sick, yeah. Lobsters everywhere. It's conch. It's the #1 conch capital of the world. There's conch everywhere, giants. Anyway, I'm sitting there going, so I'm supposed to take people snorkeling here. Okay, cool. Well, this looks amazing. And then I see this thing go flying in the air, and I'm like, and it's a turtle go flying in the air, and we see this 12-foot black shadow, and it's about a 2,000-pound tiger. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, that's tiger sharks. You gotta watch out for the tiger sharks. I'm like, and we are in the middle of nowhere.
Watch out for
It's
this.
no big
Don't
deal.
worry about the shadow. Just stay away.
So my mom's already
At
told
least you can
Fuzzy.
see him coming there.
My mom's like, Fuzzy, make sure you bring Byron back alive. You're kicking him to like Deathville. He's gonna try to dive everything, and he's gonna go crazy. I almost killed myself in Costa Rica a million times, but anyway, that's and so Fuzzy's like, son, Jarrett Bay Boat Works.
Yeah, little slight name.
The legend.
Little boat.
The guy that started it, this old timer, and his wife came, like the family guy, flies in. This is a classic story. I had no idea what Haitian refugees were. And
I was just about to ask you about this.
yeah, this was super heavy, dude. This was super heavy, and I actually was like crying on the phone when I called Fuzzy. I was like, dude. He's like, Fuzzy.
Boo.
What? And I'm like, so I take the guy across and I'm selling the whole scene. I'm like, so you guys are probably the first guys ever to fish these bonefish. We're gonna walk across this flat. There they are. And we're walking across and we see about 80 Haitians running across the flat at me.
I'm not laughing. because I
Yeah,
know.
so it's like,
Holy cow.
I'm like, I had no idea what any of this was. I'm like, who are these guys? He goes, I think we probably ought to get back in the skiff because I didn't know if they were gonna steal the skiff because they were shipwrecked.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get back in the skiff and I'm like, hey, Ambergris, this is Byron. We got a bunch of people over here on the flat and they don't look like they're doing too good. And yeah, that's the Haitians. They just landed there. They didn't tell me.
Oh, God.
And so it was really gnarly. It was an eye-opener.
What'd they do?
Well,
You got Coast
the
Guard?
immigration came and got him, and they were extremely hard on him. They beat him. I mean, it was
Oh.
I can't even get into it, but it was and then I'm like, we're feeding them and stuff, and then get on the phone. Fuzzy, it was super emotional, It was
Yeah.
like they're trying to. Ladies are like, take me to your room. I'll do anything you want. Just don't get me back. And then immigration guys are kicking them and calling them dogs. The immigration there, supposedly have shot down the boats when they catch them because they just no one will ever know.
This is Bahamian immigration.
No, Turks Island.
Gotcha.
That's just rumors.
Right,
Anyway,
allegedly.
yeah, so South Caicos and all that's some of the best bone fishing in the world, but the Haitians, that's the first stop.
Closest to it. I
Yeah,
got you.
across the Columbus Pass. So that was super heavy. I watched people die there, and it was like crazy. So I had some of the most intense experiences of my life there, and some of the most amazing fishing ever, because it was virgin.
Yeah.
I mean, it was virgin. I'm talking like
Nobody's ever seen it.
just rips and channels and popping. And I took Jose were catching giant grouper, and the one day that it's real windy down there. One day that it ever went the right wind off the front side, I'd take Jose and rush. I'd never done this before, but I knew they were damn good fishermen, and if anybody could pull something out of these reefs, 20-foot reefs, it'd be these guys. So you guys just start pitching plugs. And they were catching big Nassaws in like 20 foot of water with
Oh,
fishing rods on
that's
top
sick.
water. We got it all on video and for the show. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do this all the time. Don't worry.
No, I wasn't. That was the cool thing about that was that whole show was about, calling them in to teach me.
Mhm.
That was what we made the show.
That's pretty cool.
I was
That's
like-
about the best teacher you could have.
Yeah, it was cool because I was
Professor-wise.
just like, hey, here's the map. Show me what I'm looking for. He goes, points, corners, coves. Points, corners, coves. Channels. Grass lines. Da-da. There's your flats. I said, so where are we going to start? He goes, we'll start here. This looks epic. That looks epic. Boom. And then it started. And then after a couple years, I started getting it really wired. They hired these, we found these points with 100-pound wahoo all the time. And like, Christian, here's a great story. I got to tell some stories here.
It's all
'Cause
right.
I don't
Tell
have
them
any of
tales.
them on
Hit 'em.
film. So Christian heard that we were catching all these big wahoo, and he's a legend. He's a legend wahoo guy back then. This is when he really got into his wahoo fishing and all these fancy lures. I want to come down there with no leader and try it. And I was like, dude, you're gonna get smoked. It's not gonna happen. So he came down, but the coolest thing was he brought this blind pastor from Georgia. He was working at Ford's. This old Southern blind pastor, right? And it was the craziest experience I've ever
I'm laughing
seen.
with you, not
So
at you.
you can ask Christian this, one of his best Wahoo days ever. He'll tell you this was with me and this blind pastor, and we had this point called Phillips Point, Phillips Reef. Every time you pass it, you hook an 80 to 100 plus pounder. And so this guy's dream was to catch a wahoo, right? This blind, old, fat, blonde, Colonel Fried Chicken, blonde, white hair, legend, sweetest guy in the world. So I'm like, and Christian and him were buddies, man. It was like taking your granddad, and I'll never forget. I just want to catch one. I've heard about it, and his ears are tuned in and his feeling. We had these big Tiagras, and as soon as we hooked one, he put it in that guy's lap, and the old preacher put his hands on it. Oh yeah! The drags, and me and Christian look at each other. I'm like, oh, this is the coolest thing I've ever
He just
That's
knows,
super cool,
man.
dude.
That's cool.
So that was like one of my top dreams.
That's
stories.
super
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. It was. So yeah, I mean, that was because of Fuzzy, and then that was crazy. In 2008, everything went down, and that was over. And
That's what got rid of that.
right.
basically.
And so then I went back to Costa Rica, and I got the job on the expedition boat in the South Pacific
Wow.
from my best buddy. And I was just like, wait, so what? You want me to fly to Panama now, and you want me to fish the Hannibal Banks and be in charge of the fishing program and surfing? We're going to fish from there up, and then we're going to cross to Galapagos and do Marquesas. And for how many years? And he's like, you want to go? I said, I'll do it for free. You don't have to pay me.
Did that job spearhead it towards that? Did you get some cred by
Well, I was
working for that?
the guy who the
Ford
the
Field
first
and Plantation?
the
is it
first
now?
mate on there knew I was a waterman, and by that time I was a legit. I could free dive very deep, and I was a safety guy, and I've been around death, and I've been around wealthy people, and knew how to communicate, and I'm pretty fine tuned, and so he knew he could count on me, and I could take care of things, and wasn't a screw up really anymore, but. And so he's like, I want you on the team, and I'm the first mate, and I'm gonna take this guy's job, the captain's job. And he was one of these guys that, he says, if you want something, you got to take it. You got to work harder than the guy. You want his job, and we wanted him to be the captain. I wanted him to be the captain, then I'd be first mate. I was the deck boss. I was the fun guy. Made sure the dive gear was perfect. And our billionaire owner, he just wanted to surf, fish, and dive the most virgin places in the world, and he said, you guys make the itinerary. So we were like, okay, we're gonna go to the most virgin places in the world, and outer Tahitian, all these places. And so the guy was never there, and it was a dream, and the crossings and the experiences, and all that was like
Crossing big water.
crossing the Pacific,
Yeah.
and getting to the Galapagos and Marquesas Islands, being around tribal people and having to meet chiefs. I just couldn't believe it was happening. And actually, the first day I'll never forget getting on that adventure. I tried to get Drew on this when he was young. I was like, Drew, before you start doing all this, I want to try to get you over to the military or get you on one of these trips with me. It's different. It has to all come together, because otherwise you're going to spend $10,000 to go fish with some outfit in Australia. Blah, blah, blah. Epic. But when you go out with your team and you figure it out, and at that time I figured it's very similar to the fishing in Turks and Caicos, so I was kind of trained up. I was like, okay,
Legends,
this is all the same, but the fish are way meaner and way bigger. You're talking 100-pound GTs and this and that. And my mind just went to having the job in Fiji, and how it all just butterflies over, and it all really happened from being stoked from Fuzzy.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, and then, did you see what he wrote?
No.
Yeah.
We can stop watching.
Oh no, I was just letting you know it's the 1 hour.
Wow, that was an hour
It was an hour.
of me blabbing.
Yeah.
Dude, you're like so interested, man.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
That's what I mean. I figured we kind of
Dude,
Can you come back?
What are
Yeah,
we doing?
yeah,
I want to
yeah.
go on an
Yeah, I want to
adventure
do
with
this
you,
right.
man.
This won't
Yeah,
be
because
out.
it's important also for me to have this on film because
legacy.
It's history.
Well, you know, the whole thing was the only reason I ever do anything is to try to inspire the kids. 'Cause I'll
Right.
never forget the first guy that opened up a book to me, and I was a kid, and I was like, I didn't know you could travel the world. I didn't get it. I didn't know I could save up and go explore some area. And my mentor was like, yeah, this is me in Puerto Rico drying mushrooms and catching huge fish and surfing and da-da-da. And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, you
Run that
can,
again?
if you want to fly to Chile and go explore some mountain range and find your own dream, or go to Nicaragua and go to some place no one's ever been, you can do it. And there's going to be a lot of bad and good, you know.
I know this isn't out. Was Trent following you too, or what was
I
he
took
doing?
Trent to Coaster, yeah. Well, then,
Or was he
so-
still going back work?
Yeah. So before
I
that,
can't
the
do it. We gotta
Coast-
leave it on there.
yeah. So
Save
before
it.
that, save it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Costa
I
Rica
wanna
with
know.
Bryon and
Oh,
Carr.
I mean, it's on now.
Oh, it's on right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Oh, all right. Well,
Oh, I
let's
thought it was
We'll
off.
save it.
let's save it. Let's Can you edit this? We'll do a closing real quick for the second
Okay.
one, part 2. All right. Let's see. You ready?
Yeah.
Well, listen. That's part 1. All right. You're coming back for part 2.
Cool.
Epic stories. You're leaving us
Yeah,
down
buddy.
here.
Yeah,
We'll
Grom.
see you part 2, Byron, and we got more stories to tell. Telling tales.
Yep.
Thanks, guys. Hey, real quick. I know you're going to see this first. Byron, where can they find you? This will hit probably in about a month or so.
Yeah, nativesunadventures.com is our website. You know, we're not just fishing; we do a bunch of things, but surfing schools, and basically it's like what we do growing up here on Hilton Head, and then Native Sun Adventures Instagram.
Right on. And still kicking, brand new. What is it?
Hilton Head inshore charters.
Yeah.
And you got the new website starting to kick here soon.
Yeah, it's already up.
Very
Hilton Head
cool.
inshore charters.
Captain John Ward, Instagram, and we'll be back. Part 2 with the legend right here. Thanks, buddy.